All right, guys, we're back and we're going to keep talking about this film.
All right, now the fun is over. Let's get back to Narrow Margin. And Carly ripping it to pieces.
I know.
She's gonna. Just wait for it. Wait for it.
Okay, well, I'll start with by saying, okay, so in my teens, I very much loved thriller films. That was like my go-to. I love them. I love like No Way Out, Absolute Power, Conspiracy Theory, all those kind of like thriller films. I loved them so much. And I actually watched this and I loved it.
They were very popular at the time, yeah.
The problem arose when I watched the original film and then I watched this immediately afterwards.
Now, had you seen Narrow Margin previously?
Yes. Okay. This one, yes.
I hadn't seen either of them.
Yeah. So I'd seen this before and I really enjoyed it. However, the problem became when I watched the original and then I watched this immediately afterwards and went, oh, crap. It was like the direct comparison. I thought, oh, no. Watching it on its own, as its own entity, previously, I've been quite happy with that. You know, it was kind of like a little throwaway thriller. It's quite good. Well, you know, I liked Gene Hackman. Wasn't bad. Quite happy with that. It was only because I watched one straight after the other and went, oh, God.
What made you feel that way, though?
I just everything in the original was lacking from the remake. There was no sparkling dialogue. I mean,
Gene Hackman. You mean everything in the remake is missing from the original?
No, everything in the original is missing from the damn remake.
Oh, it's from. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, there was no like back and forth, quick sparkling dialogue. I mean, Gene Hackman was fantastic. He's always fantastic, but he didn't really have any layer. His character didn't have any layers like the original one did.
I'll say that one, yeah.
Like the stunts were good. It looked fantastic. The scenery was amazing, but it just didn't have any form of character depth at all because it felt like it was cutting corners. And that is the issue that I had.
I disagree with that. There was a whole scene on the train ride where, and it's actually a very brilliant scene in my opinion. And didn't want to get into that till later, but I guess we have to because the director also.
You roll with it, Lord Morris.
I have to, yeah, I totally have to because the director also did the cinematography. He was also the DP on this.
I think it looked fantastic. Like it looked beautiful.
Yeah. So the scene that I'm talking about, it's almost static, right? It just the camera's kind of locked off, and you got both of them in their train car or their I don't know what you call it, like the room that they rented or bought, and they're talking about everything. And this is where all their backstory comes in. And he does this amazing thing where the screen goes black. And then comes back, and then the lighting, it's just such an effective scene. And we're getting all of their backstory. I thought it was fantastic. And I just feel like you're absolutely wrong.
I feel like there's a time and a place for kind of like, I'm really funny with character development. Like, I like slow burns. I like to be given crumbs. I like to be given pieces. I like to figure it out for myself. That's just me. But I didn't feel like there was any crumbs to pick up. There was anything to be given. I felt like it was kind of just, there we go, done. Whereas in the original, I felt like there was layers that you could slowly peel away at.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It was just too much at once and you wanted it to sort of happen gradually over time.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, I understand the need to have a scene where everything's laid out. But personally, as a viewer, I would much rather have that scene spread over 3 different scenes and just pick the pieces out myself. and figure it out, see different layers. And I the main reason, like I said, I loved this film before I watched the original. That's only where my issue comes in, is that I watched the original and then watched this and went, oh, wow.
So you're explaining to us that you have no ability to be objective.
Yeah, pretty much. In a nutshell, yes. I just felt like it was a bit of a...
So it's exposition.
I liked the character more. Is it Charlotte?
Oh,
what's the woman's name?
Carol.
Carol. Okay. I liked her character a lot more than the original because there was more to it. There was a damn sight more there that made her more likable. They, made her more relatable. That made you want Gene Hackman's character to change his perspective of it. Mm-hmm. But he never. The problem was Gene Hackman's character. He never really seemed to do that.
Well, I mean, she wasn't obnoxious like the original character. I don't think that he needed to change his perspective of her, per se. I think he needed to change his own perspective about himself.
Potentially, but again, I don't think that he ever did that. There was no sort of character progression for him specifically, I would say.
No, you're probably right, because they do set him up as the good guy. Through the whole movie, he is the steadfast good guy. He doesn't take bribes. He wants to put the bad guy in jail. All that kind of stuff. The only thing that the only thing that really changes in his arc is seems to be afraid of flying on the helicopter at the beginning, and then later on it's just we should take a plane.
Fucking Jeep versus helicopter. Don't get me started on that. So, I mean,
he there was his arc, I guess.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of flying anymore.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you on that. You're right. Thinking back to it, he really didn't have an arc. But I do think that's okay, because if a character plays that role, I guess, I mean, it's fine.
See, what I liked in the original, because I didn't, to begin with, I wasn't keen on the lead actor. I thought, oh, here we go, typical bloody gumshoe cop. But actually, he had quite a bit of, his character had quite a bit of character development, even though it was one location, and because he completely shifted his perspective on what he thought women were. And the ideal woman, he had this image of some woman that would marry a gangster and be an arsehole, and they must be like this. They must be cheap, cheap food kind of thing. And then by the end of it, he realized, I kind of got suckered in by a woman that I thought would be horrible that actually isn't. So he had some character development.
Well,
I thought that was potentially lacking from the remake, that there was no
They
real...
do touch upon that in the remake, though. And I guess that would be the exact moment where Gene Hackman's character does have an arc, because he's very much stay in the cart, don't come out. She's like, hey, look, if you'd stop fucking going out there, I might be safer. I can take care of myself. Yeah, I know. And she's like, I can take care of myself. Go if you want to go, whatever. So I do, and he starts to realize this. So I guess he sort of has that same character arc from the original.
He doesn't necessarily treat her any differently, though, after that fact. Really? There's not...
Yeah, it's if he does, it is extremely subtle, because I think the whole exposition scene of them talking about their backstories comes right after that moment. Yeah. And then after that, it's all pretty much action. So maybe they didn't allow for a moment for him to fully show the audience that he's adjusted his thought process there.
Exactly. I feel like it was just potentially missing another scene just could have cemented it.
But
because that wasn't necessarily there, and they kind of give way to action. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I struggle with action films anyway, so as soon as they started getting on the top of the bloody train, I was like, oh, God.
Yeah, I think that you're probably right there. You probably could have used something to solidify that a little bit more. I do think that the idea, the seed is planted. I think it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I think you're right. They probably needed a little something else to sort of show his change of attitude towards that. And I don't think he was ever overtly chauvinistic or anything. I think it's, his character felt more like, in maybe the way that he was brought up or was taught is that he needs to protect the woman, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And as to where a lot of noir films, it could come off more chauvinistic and whatnot, so that arc might be bigger because it's more of just sort of like, I'm the tough guy and I need to protect you or whatever it might be.
Yeah, which is more like it was in the original. He was kind of like telling all the women, don't worry, you'll be fine.
Right.
I've got your back. And then one of them got shot. But anyway.
Right. So I do think that there's a little bit of a sociological sort of aspect to that, and then like the time periods that the films were made and whatnot. But you're definitely right. I think they could have probably solidified that a little bit more in this film. It is probably missing there.
It's just you're gonna hate me when I say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I made you a lord, so whatever.
Yeah.
Speed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
what would be a podcast if we did not bring up Keanu Reeves?
One of the main reasons that I like Speed is because I think that character is a moron. Like, he's an absolute moron. But through the course of the film, he ends up being less of a moron and actually showing his true personality.
Mm-hmm. And
then right towards the end, well, actually before the whole weird train crap, which is just ruins the film, when they've got off the bus, he literally just, it's like a minute, if that, where he just sort of like asks her if she's okay.
Yeah.
And in that like one frame, you can see that his character has changed. They just needed something like that in this, I feel personally, and then Gene Hackman's character would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah, I hear you. I agree with you. I don't recall it from Speed. I'd have to rewatch it.
Probably a bad example using Speed, but it was the only one I could think of right now. So
no, I mean, it sounds like a good example. I haven't seen Speed in years, so I'd have to rewatch it.
Oh my God, we should do Speed for a podcast.
No way.
It's so noir. It's so noir. It's not at all. I'm lying.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. But The Matrix is noir, so watch out, people.
I really felt like there was a lot of similarities to this movie, though, to the original one. I wouldn't say it's loosely based on it. I mean, there's so much similarities.
No, I wouldn't say it's loose. I think loosely based on is a bit of an exaggeration because it's like the opening's different. There's a lot more setup.
Yeah.
But once you get on the train, that's a very similar pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very similar. I was even I had when I watched, I thought I was watching the remake first, okay? And as I'm watching it, me and Shawnee are going, we just watched this. And I'm like, no, we haven't. We did not watch a Gene Hackman movie. I have not seen this movie, but I've seen this movie. And I didn't realize.
You mean Lady Shawnee?
Lady Shawnee. Yes.
Thank you.
I didn't realize I had recently watched The Narrow Margin. Because I had watched it not for this podcast, but I had just watched it. And just didn't realize it. And we're sitting here watching this going like, damn, this is familiar. Like, we've seen this. And then like, yeah, remember there's like the heavyset dude that comes down and nobody can get around. And then that happens. And we're like, but these are different people. I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck? So then I figured out, oh yeah, I had watched The Narrow Margin recently. I just didn't watch it for the podcast. So I didn't put two and two together. But there were so many similarities to it. And I did not rewatch The Narrow Margin for the podcast because I feel like
dicey.
I had just seen it. Like, I remember so much about it, But then I'm thinking, well, maybe I should have rewatched it because there's this whole news reporter person that in my
That
brain
you've imagined.
is in that movie. Yeah, but isn't. And so there was like certain things like the railroad police guy, the heavyset dude. Like in my brain, that character is completely different than the original film, and he's the one that goes and says, "Hey, I'm going to radio ahead for help because they've, destroyed the communications on the train." And then when you come back to him, he's been killed. And in my head, in the original version, that was the news reporter that I keep thinking of that went into one of the carts for some reason. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then you come back to him and he's dead. So there's certain things that in my brain that just aren't clicking, right away, but they're slightly different, but still very, very similar to that original film. And I would definitely say this is strongly based on the 52 film.
Yeah, definitely. I think loosely based is a very
they're super misleading because it's got some very strong similarities. Even the kid is in it.
That's like us remaking the Desperate Hours and setting it in the car and going, "Oh, it's loosely based on the Desperate Hours." Well, no.
Yeah, but I mean, even still, like this still takes place on a train. They're changing the destination. Yeah. It's Canadian instead of going to LA. But I mean, it's
mainly the opening, isn't it? That's so different. And then it almost felt like they combined two characters into one. And then ended up with one half decent character and one character that was very lacking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely some shifting of the characters for whatever reason.
Which I don't fully understand, but I'm guessing they didn't want to follow the same sort of like, oh, we know the ending.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's whatever. Maybe Hyams, what's his name? Sorry. Peter Hyams, yeah. Thought that maybe the original wasn't quite as believable or whatever. I mean, he has been known to say that the original was an okay film. It wasn't great.
Better than this.
Well, I don't know. I really like this film. No, hold on. Let me say my piece. Relax, lady.
I mean,
Cardi.
I'm pretty sure I can get a refund on that Lord Morris thing. So you better be careful.
Okay, so where this film, I think, legs up the original quite a bit is in its cinematography.
Yeah.
I think that he did a phenomenal job. Like, there are stunts in this movie. Like, I know you talked about...
oh my God, the stunts are amazing.
Yeah, so like early on in the opening stuff where... okay, I got to mention M. Walsh real quick because I think he's phenomenal. I love M. Walsh. Anything he shows up in, I think is phenomenal. From Blade Runner to The Town That Said Dreaded Sundown, whatever it might be. Like, this guy is just phenomenal. I love him. And seeing him in this movie just like made me smile. And then they fucking kill him. I was so mad. I was like, oh, cool, he's in it. And then they kill him. Like, he's in the movie for like 5 freaking minutes. I was so angry. But I really love Emmett Walsh, and I think he's just great. But in that scene, in that section of the movie, not that scene, but in the beginning where they go to find Carol and talk her into testifying and whatnot, and then the helicopter shows up and blows the place up, basically, and then they take off in that Ford Bronco or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah, that's the Jeep versus helicopter bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so look, though, the cinematography with this vehicle that they're in, like, made me jump out. I was watching it while I was in bed. Made me jump out of bed because when they almost go over that fucking mountain, it like did something to my brain and just made me like think. Oh my God,
did you have like a backdraft moment? Do you remember when we were talking about backdraft and you were like, oh, I thought I was going off the edge of a cliff.
Yes, it's the same thing. Yeah, it like I just flew out of bed going, oh my God, and it happened again in this movie. When they're on the freaking train, when they get up on top of that roof, man, and that camera like flies, it's like up above the train real quick, and they're going over like a bridge, and like it just like it got my gut, man. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna fall. And so I just got to hand it to him. He did an amazing job with the cinematography, and those stunts looked so realistic. The only thing that didn't look realistic that bugged me is the helicopter crashing in that opening scene. It was an obvious model to when this helicopter starts to spin around. It was like, I don't know if they filmed it too close up, whatever it might have been, but it was an obvious helicopter model, which kind of took me out of it. But other than that one shot, I just thought everything was just so well shot. He just did a phenomenal job. I think he was a much better visual storyteller than he was compared to the original director of The Narrow Margin from '52. I think that was much better directed than the newer version, but the cinematography in the newer version was phenomenal in comparison. Like, I think that he needs to do, or should have done, a lot more on the cinematography side than directing, in my opinion. Because even atmospheric wise, like he was full of the smoky interiors and the exteriors, and he did a great job with the long shots.
Some of the scenes in the train where, with like the blinds and stuff and the lighting was fantastic. Like, it looked gorgeous. It was a gorgeous looking film. Yeah,
it really was. And that's where this movie like stole my heart. Like, I thought it was just great in terms of that. So I just wanted to give him a shout out for that stuff, and I thought that really made this movie well worth the watch and owning even. And that maybe just comes from me as being a filmmaker and having done a lot of my own cinematography and whatnot. I just think he did a fantastic job with that.
So hey, Carl, let's take a break real quick and talk to our listeners about our sponsors.